learning Likutei Moharan, Baruch Hashem. There are those that are so great and so holy, and they have what's called the Bechin of Shefa HaKeser. They get the light from all the way up there. Hu tzarech she'eloi bechinas kol. So we spoke about this morning is that a big tzaddik has to be what's called kol, everything. He has to be connected to everything, every person. It's so amazing. Rabbi Nachman was the kol. He was somebody that was connected to everything, everybody. He had a language to speak to anybody. He played chess with the koifim, the apikorsim. Bechinas ki kol b'shamayim v'aretz. And he had the ability to connect. V'targumoy da'ochid b'shmaya v'ara. He can connect heaven and earth. Hainu. She'oichiz u'mekayim shnei ha'olamas. He's able to unify both worlds. Olam ha'elyon v'olam ha'tachtun. She'hem bechinas shamayim v'aretz. Imagine a human being that could be so lofty and so much up in the higher worlds, but at the same time they're so with us in the lower world. They're so relatable. They're so down here. There's so much connecting. Real big tzaddikim need to know how to live in the upper world and the lower world all at the same time. And each needs to be able to be spoken to in their own way. And here's where we get to the main part. There are those people that are living in the upper world, and there are those people that are living in the lower world. How do we get through to people in the upper world, and how do we get through to people in the lower world? That's our question today. How do we really get through to people that are living in a high place? How do we speak their language? What's that app called? 11 something?
11 Lives.
11 Lives? Is it through 11 Lives? How do we speak the language? Labs? 11 Labs? Is that how we speak the language of the whole world? Reb Nachman didn't have 11 Labs, but he had a language of his soul that spoke to everybody. He could speak to all people around the world. He had a language that whether those people were on a high spiritual level or those that were on a low spiritual level. Dore mala, dore mata. To really get through to the people. I see that Eric is asking, is levitation possible? Thank you so much from Scotland, my friend. Yes, the answer is yes. It involves using one of the holy names of God. However, if a person is only doing it to have a cool magic trick at the party to pick up a girl, then I would advise you against it. Because that's like taking the scepter of the king and misusing the scepter of the king, and that seemed to be a rebellion. Meaning, I stole the scepter of the king, and then I could wield power with it. But if a person is close to God, and a person understands that God wants him to do something in a certain area, then yes, he's able to levitate, and that would be permitted. We do see in this week's parsha that Yaakov, that Yaakov Avinu is leaving Beersheba, he's going to Haran, and all of a sudden he bumps into the Beis HaMikdash. He runs in to the Holy of Holies. So it says that he realized that he passed by Jerusalem, and he didn't daven by the Kivrei Avos. He did not daven by, not the Kivrei Avos, he didn't daven by the Beis HaMikdash. And he realized that how could it be that I passed the Beis HaMikdash? And it says that the Beis HaMikdash jumped towards him. Now this is called Kfitzas Ha'aretz, where the earth folds in. There's two types of levitation. There's a levitation where you go up in the air and you start flying, like on a magic carpet, or on the back of the wagon with the Baal Shem Tov. That's one option. You go on the back of the wagon with the Baal Shem Tov, and you levitate that way. Or the other option is that the earth folds in, and a location levitates to you, so to speak. That's Kfitzas Ha'aretz. Is when you run over. You jump in the air, that's right. Kfitzas Ha'aretz is when the land itself folds in. the land folded in, or kfitz the derech is that you jumped over the derech. Your derech was shortened. You leaped and were able to get places very, very quickly. So thank you, our friend, for the question about levitation. The creator here is speaking about black magic. The Jewish people are against black magic, my friend. I would highly, highly recommend, if anybody is trying to get you to do black magic, to run away as fast as you possibly can. Those are the wrong crowds. I would go right to God, because God will help you in all the things that you need. Stay away from the occult, stay away from all the black magic, and just come and be close to God. And all of the special things that you want to achieve, you'll be able to achieve, but you'll be able to achieve them in a good and a holy way. Even with an art scroll Gemara, my friends, you'll be able to achieve them.
Wow.
Thank you. Salam alaikum to you as well, my brother. Thank you so much for the warm wishes. So we're speaking about reaching everybody. That tzaddik is kol. That tzaddik is in a place of all. And having a language for those that are doramala and a language for doramata. And now, because we're speaking about doramal and doramata, we're trying to have a language of kol, and there's wonderful questions coming in, so I think we could address some of them. Who is Moses, prophet or God? So Irfan Alim Sikui, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it properly, Moses is not God. Interestingly, does anybody know where the burial place of Moses is? No. The Torah conceals where it is, because if people did know, they would make Moses into a god. God forbid. And therefore it was concealed. There's only one God. The Echad Yochad Meyuchad, HaYehovah, only the one and only God. No human being can be God. That's very, very important to know that. And therefore, for all of our friends around the world, so important to remember, a human being cannot be God. A human being can be a great leader. A human being can be a great guide. A human being can be a mentor. But a human being can never be God, because a human being is finite. A human being has an infinite part inside of them, as close to infinity as there is, the soul. But there's only one infinity, and that is God. And therefore, we're speaking here about the language of the Doramala and the Doramata, those that are up above and those that are down below. So here Reb Nachman says, you want to get through to people that are very high up in the world. People that are very high up in the world, the way you actually speak to them is by telling them, do you know how far you still are? That's very interesting. The people that are very high up in the world, you have to tell them, you should know you have a long way to go. You have a long way to go. Because sometimes when a person's at a high spiritual level, they feel like, I've reached it. I'm floating. I'm in the zone. I'm good. And the tzaddik has to have a language to tell that person, you think that you've arrived? There's so much work that you still need to do. You think you made the Rav Neufeld shir, as high as that is, there's so much more to do. And Rav Neufeld knows a lot more than what he just tells you in his shir. He knows great things. There's so much more to know and to grow. So very, very important to realize that. And that's a bechina called ma, and that's a bechina called ayeh. Ayeh mekoyim kavodah. Is that you teach a person up there to say ayeh, Hashem, where? As we're going up to the throne of glory, that there's more and more and more and more. Reb Nachman has a whole piece where he says, ayeh mekoyim kavodah. Ayah is the makom kavodah. When you get to a place where you're like, ayah, you're there. But there is ayah.
Is that why it's like there's a thing with saying ayah during the Musaf Kedusha and to have meditations about certain things?
Yes, ayah is where it all happens. That's where the magic is.
Is it connected to like Eke, similar ways?
Ayah is chokhmah bina das.
Why?
And keser chokhmah bina, really. Because the aleph is keser, the yud is chokhmah, and the hey is bina. So when you go into the ayah moment, you're going keser, chachma, bina, makoyim kavodah.
And why there is also such person with your heels? Why is that again?
You're going up to makifim. Makifim. So the person that's holding on a high spiritual level, you always tell him, yeah, there's so much more, there's higher and higher levels that you can get to. But what about the person who's down here? What about the person who is not doing well? What about the person who feels on a low spiritual level? What about the person who's struggling? What about the person who's going through difficulties? How many people do you think are struggling in the world today?
Majority, probably 90, almost, let's say, at least 75.
What do you guys say? How many people do you think are struggling in the world today?
Everyone, all of them, because they have social media to compare everything to against what before 100 years ago you just knew what life was. It wasn't like, oh, some other guy, I could be doing that, but I'm here. It was all just, oh, this is what we do.
What's that called when people compare themselves to all they look at because everything on Instagram looks too perfect. What's that called? There's like a whole name. There's a whole thing.
Someone comparing themselves to someone else.
Is because you look on some guy's Instagram, and thank you first of all for all the honesty, everybody answering. Cynthia telling us 100% struggling. That there's a thing, you look on a person's Instagram, it's not like they're posting photos of themselves and they're like, after they hit a crack pipe and they're all depressed. They post the pictures at the beach, they post the pictures when, all the highlight reel of their life. So you go on Instagram, and then you look at these guys like they have perfect lives. Every account is perfect. It's perfect. And the guy's always just perfect, everything looks great. Everyone's looks maxing, it looks so perfect. But then you know your life. You know that you're only posting the highlight. Now you might say, come on, everyone knows that. But the problem is people don't. Because they don't know how to compute that they're only posting their best stuff. So there's a lot of people struggling, Menachem, like you said, is that we're comparing ourselves to the images that we're seeing. Why else do you think people are struggling? People are sharing a lot right now in our poll of, are you struggling?
God's been taken out of the world. So the best support system that worked for thousands of years in the last 100 years has now been ultimately removed. And now people are like, I feel so empty. My life doesn't have meaning. Well, you kind of removed the life and meaning from the equation.
Not just that, but it's been replaced by just pure lies. So many lies in this world that people try to find the truth and they're just lost in the lies. Everything they see, all the news they see, it's all manipulated. So it's very blurry.
Like blind guys with the shuk.
It's very blurry. It's very blurry. How do we get out of the blurriness, my friends? So it's a good thing that we have a God that loves us, and God communicated how to get out of the challenge, to get out of the blurriness and come back. And the way to get back is through God. So I would really agree that in a world where we have so sadly made God something on the side, that there's going to be struggling. So Reb Nachman says, you know how you help those people? Let's go into the tikkun. I still have more people here struggling than not. Thank you everybody for being so honest and sharing if you're struggling. And sharing if there's challenges in your life. And if you could share with us where you're writing from today, which part of the world. It's always so meaningful that we could learn together and grow together. So Reb Nachman's about to say a secret, how to help people that are struggling. He calls them the Dorei Mata, people down in this world. The Dorei Ma'ala are the ones that are all the way up there. And they have their own issue, as we mentioned before. You have to teach them how far there is still to grow. But the people that are down in this world, that are what is called shoichnei ofar. They're literally in the dust. They're feeling like occupied and just completely taken over by either their five senses, they're completely taken over by their taivas, by their desires, they're slaves to their desires. So what do I need to teach them? What is the message that I need to give them? What message? What message do I need to give that person? Somebody who's all the way down. Somebody who's struggling all the way down in the pits. How do you give hope to someone like that? These are people that feel like they're on their last legs. These are people who feel that they're in a place of darkness. And it appears to them, and it appears to them that they're so far from God. And they feel that their life is meaningless and there's no purpose. And they feel like they're just a cog in the system, an NPC going through the motions. How do we help those people? And really the Jewish mission and message is we want to help everybody. We want to help everybody, and we will do whatever we can to help the entire world. So all those people that are just struggling, just sitting in their basement on their internet and just ordering another pizza and another bag of Doritos, which is very sad for me. Just get some sunlight at least. That's my first message, Chevra. Get outside. Meet some people. Go spend time. You know what the message is that we tell them? V'tzarech hatzadik, the point inside of you and I, and the point really inside of them, because every single person has this point inside of them, has to wake them up and give them, that the prophet Isaiah said, Hakitzu ve'ranenu shoichnei ofar. Let's wake up and let's help to sing those that are dwelling in the dust. Ulegalois lehem, reveal them the following: Shehashem imam. God is with you even in the darkness. No matter how far you think you fell, God is there also. Ve'afilu be'astoreh. שבתוך הסתורא, בוודאי גם שם, נמצא השם יסבורה, ואפילו בהסתורא, שבתוך הסתורא, בוודאי גם that even, afilu, even in the darkest hiding places, that a person feels that he's in a basement and he's rotting and he's just so out, Hashem is there. Hashem, God is so there in that place. You're never alone. You're never alone. That's the message that you give somebody who feels so lost. You're never alone. You're never alone. God is with you. That's one of the things I love about the 12-step program so much, for all those that have been helped by it, is that those Chevra told me, they said, the first step, and it's such a godly program, the first step is, they're not saying it, but it's so godly, that there's a power greater than me. I'm an alcoholic, and there's a power greater than me that can help me get out of this. First, it's just, I got to admit, I got to man up to this. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about. But then you're not alone. And not only you're not alone, you can't get out of this by yourself. But if God helps you, you can get out of anything. And you can overcome everything. Every challenge, no matter what, God is with you. You can get through everything. There's nothing that you can't get through. And therefore the mission is to be able to go and share this message with the world. Ki mala kol haaretz kavoday. The world, God, is filled with your light, and therefore somebody who feels like he's on the last point, the last moment of energy, you can wake up and you can overcome it. L'chazkam, l'oiram, to wake up, Shaloye miyashim atzm chas v'sholom, that a person should never give up. God forbid. Ki adayin heim eitzel Hashem yisborah kroy v'meilav. Ki mala kol ha'aretz kavoidai. There's always hope. You can always get up. You can wake up. You can be great. And we know that if you're alive, it means God cares about you. He's interested in you. And He believes in you. You can be great. You can overcome this. V'zeh b'chinas kol. And this is what it means that the tzaddik has the power of kol. He could speak to everybody. He's able to connect to everybody, give everybody the message that's appropriate for them. And that's really ki mirachem minagem that we said in the beginning of the Torah. Is that only the true leader has a language to give the person what they need to hear to help them. So Rabbi Isai, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your feelings. And may Hashem help us that we can mamish feel. We could feel that God is with us as we're in the place of the Dora Mata. And as we go up and up and up, that we can understand that there's so much that there is still to know and to connect to. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll have a little bit of time now for the Chevra's feelings and questions. So Menachem, if you have...
Michelle wants to know if you use a curling iron.
No,
Wow.
you just, thank you for the question.
Great question.
What you do is you just, after a person goes either to the mikveh or he goes and takes a shower, so he just takes the payas and he just spins it a little bit, and then it goes like that. Thank you so much for the question. I like that Vigil is saying, singing to the Lord is the ultimate prayer. Yes, so important, my friends. Sing. Sing to God. Chevra, sing. Sing, sing. We're going to be sharing some music on the different groups of ours. And just sing. Go to holy music. Go and sing. Some of the Chevra made an Instagram account. We're going to share music there. We're going to share music, holy music. Go and sing. Sing. Hear holy music. Music is so powerful. It can literally take you from the highest place and take you even higher. Or God forbid, it could take a person from a good place and it could take him into the darkest bad places, which is such a proof of the power of music, of just how powerful and influential music is. So Chevra, be very careful of the music that you listen to, that you want it to be holy music. And we're going to share some music with the Chevra because we highly recommend that people get involved in good music. One of our friends is mentioning Kanye. Thank you so much for the shout out to Kanye. It looks like that when he met Rav Pinto, he had a feeling of tshuva, of trying to take ownership, which is something that we really believe in, of taking responsibility. He gave a mashal. Kanye gave a mashal, an analogy. A mashal is an analogy where he said that if somebody's got a kid that makes a mess, so you got to go and clean up the mess. And I think what he means by that, I never met Kanye, but I think what he means by that is that there's an idea that there's a higher self and a lower self. And the higher self is doing things that are good and right, and the lower self is doing things that are not in accordance with your higher self. And I think what he means by that is he was saying is that my lower self was acting in certain ways, but my higher self wants to come and connect and be good, and therefore that's a wonderful thing. And every human being should think in that way, is that I have a higher self. If my lower self makes a mess and makes a problem, then I want to take ownership of that. Because every single person after 120 years is going to have to own up to that. So it's much better to do that now than have to deal with that later. Bezrat Hashem, we're all going to live till 120 years. And really forever. If Mashiach comes today, then we just stay alive. Bezrat Hashem. Thank you for the comment, my friend.
Someone wants to know if Matok and Malchit Tzedek are the same person.
Matok.
Enoch
Uh-huh.
and Malchit Tzedek.
Could be. We see that that there is such a thing that Chanoich became Matat. he became the great, it's called the Saraponim. He became the great angel that guards the gates up in Shemayim. And we learned last Torah in Rav Nachman that Matat only has control during the 6 days of the week. And Matat really makes sure that only certain things get into the inner chambers. He's like the gatekeeper. Becomes Shabbos Kodesh, and he's not there anymore. Once it comes Shabbos, everything goes on. That's why the mitzvahs and things go up on Shabbos Kodesh, because that's like a ben. That's like being a son. If somebody comes to a king, so there's going to be some major gatekeeper at the door, and says, like, who are you? What are you doing here? Who says a guy like you belongs in a place like this? So that being said, what if the son of the king shows up to the palace? So if the son of the king shows up to the palace, so the gatekeeper moves aside, and he says, come on right in. You're the son. So that's what Shabbos Kodesh is. It's like connecting back to your father. Shabbos Kodesh. So Matat, he's really guarding the 6 days of the week, and then we have Shabbos Kodesh.
This one. I heard God has many different names. Can you tell me what the difference is between them?
That's a wonderful and Kabbalistic question. So I can share a little bit with you, is that one of the names, and it's fascinating, is actually in plural, and that's Elokim. Now, we know that God is one. That is the ultimate Jewish message to the world, is God is one. So how does God have a name that's in the plural? So the answer is that Elokim is referring to the following, that God made everything. All the stars, all the constellations, everything in creation is coming from the infinite source. God set up a world where there are ministers, there are angels, there are powers that are running this world, that are running the natural world. There's the angels that are behind the sun. There's the buffalo spirits. There's the angels that are behind the scenes, that are really moving this world. And the natural world runs through these angels. So that's why many ancient cultures, and this is classic idol worship, would go to the spirit of the animals and the spirit of, and do a sun dance, God forbid, or a moon dance. These would be, they're going to the intermediaries and they're seeking blessing from there. But God is in charge of all the intermediaries. That's what Elokim means, that He's the one in charge of all of the intermediaries. And that's why it's a plural name, because He's the one in charge of all of those powers. So that's one of God's names. Also, Elokim is the same numerical value as Hateva, nature. So it's that which God is completely running all of nature and can change it anytime He pleases. Another one of God's names is Kel, which means Chesed. Chesed Kel Kol Hayom. The names of God are the ways that He relates to us in this world. And therefore there's certain meditations that you could do where if you want to bring an energy down into the world, that you would see a name and that you'll go into the emotional state that's related to that, and then you're opening up pipelines of blessing into your life. Or if a person needs more strength to be able to overcome his evil inclination. So there are names that are connected to then having more power and strength. Those all exist also in Yud Kei Vav Kei, also depending on the vowelization. And that's something called the meditation of the Merkava, but we'll leave that for another time, my friends. Thank you for the question.
Someone wants to know how we are born into sin.
It's so interesting you mentioned that, because we mentioned it this morning. Is that, do we have a Chumash here?
Yep.
So, what's our friend's name that asked that question?
Natush.
Nitush, thank you for the question. The answer is, when Adam ate from the tree, things happened. When Adam ate from the tree, it was not good. It was not good. And certain curses came into the world. So what curses came into the world? God says, where are you? And he's hiding. And God says, what happened? And Adam says, my wife made me do it. And then Chava says, the snake made me do it. And then there are curses. V'yomer Hashem Elokim ala nachash. Because you did this, arur ata. So the snake is cursed. Okay? And then, ve'eva oshis, beincha ubein ha'isha, ubein zaracha, ubein zara. Oh, so what do we see is the next? There's going to be enmity between you and your wife, between your offspring. There's going to be challenges here. It's not going to be simple. What else do we see? We see that women will have a difficult time bearing children. That's also a curse. We see that the land was cursed. We see that you're going to have a hard time making money. Nowhere does it say that the man is cursed and that the man is born with sin. To the contrary, a man is pure. The soul is pure. There are curses that come down into the world from eating the Eitz Hadas, but not that the human being is a sinner from the get-go. The human being is good in their soul. And therefore, my friend, whoever told you that, it's not correct. The Torah makes it explicit that you are not a sinner. If you made bad decisions in your life, then yes, if you follow your evil inclination, then you could have sinned. But you're not a sinner in your essence. Your soul is good. And therefore the core Jewish belief is that from the Torah, we are good in our essence. We have a humongous challenge to overcome called the snake. If a person makes bad decisions, then he falls into sin. But in our essence, we are good. And therefore, really the struggle of life is not, I'm a sinner, I need to be saved. We don't start a conversation with somebody like, what did you do to be saved today? You know how we start a conversation? What mitzvah did you do today? In which way are you getting closer to God? In which way are you overcoming your Yetzer Hara? In other words, in your essence, you are good. Elokai neshama shenosata bi te'oilahi. That the soul that you placed inside of me is pure. Except that a human being has machshavas rabos, has all sorts of strange thoughts from the snake, and you got to overcome them. You got to man up. And you have to fight the good fight and not let your lower self overcome you. And therefore, my friend, a man is not a sinner. If you make bad decisions, then that's not good. And you have to return and do tshuva and come back to the goodness that is your soul. Thank you for the question, my dear friend. A few more questions from our Chevra. I have a question here. I am from India. Can I convert to Judaism? Anybody who wants to convert? Yes, my friend. You can convert. Anybody that wants to, you can look up how to do that. We're not pushing anybody to, but if it's something that they want to, they feel connected to, then that is absolutely within your free will to do so. And it's a decision that has to come from a real place of, this is something that I want. And nobody has to. There's a lot more responsibility because you have 613 categories of mitzvahs. People think like, I could memorize 613. Open the Mishnah Berurah.
Someone wants to know, the rabbi is lying. You can't be Jewish without your mother being Jewish. They won't accept you. Is that correct?
It's not true, my friend. It is not true. It is not true. If your mother is Jewish, then yes, you are Jewish. But if your mother's not Jewish, then you can convert. You have to show that you really want this. Because, I'll tell you, that there were people that were not true converts, and they're called the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav, the mixed multitudes, they were ones that came out of Egypt, and they pretended to try to convert, but they were doing it for alternative motives. They were not doing it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. And they have made problems over the years and continue to make problems. And the Zohar discusses who these people are. And be very careful. But anybody who comes with a pure heart and they say, I feel connected to the mission of the Jewish people. I feel connected to Torah. I feel connected to everything that we are sharing. Then they can join. You cannot join if you are doing it because you want to marry some girl, you want to marry some guy. Those are not pure reasons. Person's out, I want to join their business. You can do business without that anyways. It has to be that a person says, I feel connected to the mitzvahs, I feel connected to what it means to follow Torah. And then a person could come. Another question here, how many gods are in Judaism? My friend, only one. Only one. The one and only. Only one. Remember that. There's only one. That was the message of Avram Avinu. The Yikra b'Shem Hashem, and wherever Avram Avinu went, he spoke about God's unity. That's the most important thing. Only one.
Someone wants to know, is that one God the same God that Muslims believe in?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why when you hear Allahu Akbar, it should mamish very much make you feel this amazing feeling. God is great. God is great. God is great. We say the same thing. Shema Yisrael. Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. God is great. God is one, my friends. We're all speaking to the same God. Thank you so much for that question. One of our friends is speaking about reading Jeremiah, and it mentions the avodah zarah of certain trees. Yes, be careful. Do not have any items in one's home that are idols or connected to idol worship. Very important to know that any object that has become a type of a worship has to be avoided. This goes to all humanity. And therefore, if there are statues, graven images, anything, those have to be removed from the home. We're talking about you can speak to God anytime you want. No graven images, no idols, just direct communication. Talk to God, my friends.
That's a good one. What is idol worship?
Idol worship is, in Hebrew it's called avodah zarah. So avodah means you're doing something, you're working. Zarah in a strange way. Zarut, a foreign, strange, occupied way. You're worshiping something other, strange. In other words, you believe that your hope comes from a strange place. As opposed to going right to the source, right to God, you're going to other. You're going to something else. Whether that means your boss, whether that means anything that you think will be your salvation, or a human being of any type, they are not your salvation, only God. We were joking around before that when Leah said, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope. No, you're not. God is. Not Obi-Wan. You're not our only hope. God is our only hope. So anything of that nature would be avodah zarah. Obi-Wan could be helping, could be a messenger of God, but ultimately Obi-Wan is coming from the one God. Thank you so much for the question. I hope that was clarifying. Oh, this is a wonderful question. How could Moses' book, the Torah, have the death of Moses? Wonderful question. This was addressed many, many times. It's the last 8 verses of the Torah. Excellent question. That's right. Excellent, excellent question. The end of the Torah, we are told, was that all the letters were put together. They had not yet spaced out. So Moshe had written the entire Torah. After he died, then the letters spaced out, and you saw where the division of the letters were. Wonderful question. Thank you so much.
Someone said, should we not pray to angels either? Right? Question mark. It is said that they are just a messenger of God.
Do not pray to angels. That's also avodah zarah. That's on higher levels. That would be some of the problems of real paganism or shamanism, of seeking and eliciting connection and then hope from spirits, whether they be animal spirits or certain divine spirits. Stay away from that at all causes. Have a wonderful day. My dear friends, we're continuing in 1 minute with our next class.